Hi, Internet. Your favorite Janite is ready to read Pride and Prejudice. I wanted to start off by saying that my episode 0 got almost 900 views, and it's not me, so that's kind of shocking, but thank you to all of you who viewed. And so that makes this project a little bit more exciting. So just to start, I am reading from the Everman Library of Pride and Prejudice. And the first 33 pages is a chronology, bibliography, introduction, and, just pretty much everything you want to know about Jane, and also thoughts by the person who wrote the intro. I'm not reading that because I have read it and it's boring as hell, and I already knew most of it just because I've been a Janite for many years, and I have read Wikipedia, jasna.org. I am a member in full of Jasna, and also Pemberley.com, and the zillion other websites that talk about Jane. So when I did the test run for Pride and Prejudice, I thought I could get a couple chapters in per episode, but it looks like with my commentary, I'm only getting in about one chapter an episode. So this may take some time because I'm flipping through, and there's so far near the end of the book, we're up to 58 chapters. So hopefully we might be pushing this more from twice a week to 3 times a week, depending upon how often I record these. Okay, so just a refresher, I'm going to be reading Pride and Prejudice, and I am going to be giving commentary as I read through. I also warn there may be swears, and that is for anybody with delicate ears who may not like the swearing going on. I'm actually a little afraid to post the videos on my Facebook groups just because there's the Pearl Clutchers, and I'm active in those groups, so I don't want to cause a rift. So I figured when I'm advertising across my Jane Austen empire, which is excessively diverting, which we're everywhere. So if you are watching this not on TikTok, you are probably watching this on Facebook or on Instagram. Okay, let's begin. Chapter 1. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. Okay. The most trite introduction on the planet because people have fucking destroyed it in the last 200 years. 95% of articles about Jane begin with some variation of that sentence. I get it. It's memorable. People love it. But at the same time, come up with something new. Be a little bit more innovative, creative perhaps. It just drives me crazy because every time I read an article and I see that paragraph or see that for a sentence, whether it's at the beginning of the paragraph or somewhere buried in the lead, it just drives me insane. Okay, so that's my little rant about that first sentence. However, little known the feelings or views of such a man may be on his first entering a neighborhood. This truth is so well fixed in the minds of the surrounding families that he is considered as a rightful property of some one or other of their daughters. And as we know, actually during my warm-up for this, I had discussed about women and their roles during the Regency and Georgian period. So I'm going to wait until I'm at the end of this chapter. "My dear Mr. Bennet," said his lady to him one day, "have you heard that Netherfield Park is let at last?" We know let means rent. Bingley did not actually purchase Netherfield. He's renting the property. Mr. Bennet replied that he had not. "But it is," returned she, "for Mrs. Long has just been here, and she told me all about it." Mr. Bennet made no answer. "Do not you want to know who has taken it?" cried his wife impatiently. "You want to tell me, and I have no objection to hearing it." This was invitation enough. "Why, my dear, you must know, Mrs. Long says that Netherfield is taken by a young man of large fortune from the north of England, and that he came down on Monday in a chaise and four," which is essentially a carriage and 4 horses, "to see the place, and was so much delighted with it that he agreed with Mr. Morris immediately that he is to take possession before Michaelmas, and some of his servants are to be in the house by the end of next week." "What is his name?" "Bingley." "Is he married or single?" "Oh, single, my dear. To be sure, a single man of large fortune, 4,000 or 5,000 a year. What a fine thing for our girls." Okay, Quick interjection here about money in the Regency and Georgian era. So essentially, this is money he's gaining from the estate. This is not the value of his estate at all. I did some research probably about 3 or 4 years ago about Darcy's 10 grand a year, and come to find out that's worth about $150,000. So again, not the value of his estate. This is just what he's getting from the income. Oh, single, my dear, to be sure. A single man of large fortune, 4 or 5,000 a year. What a five thing for girls. How so? How can it affect them? My dear Mr. Bennet, replied his wife, how can he be so tiresome? You must know that I'm thinking of his marrying one of them. Is that his design in settling here? Designs? Nonsense! How can you talk so? But it is very likely that he may fall in love with one of them, and therefore you must visit him as soon as he comes. I see no occasion for that. You and the girls may go, or you may send them by themselves, which perhaps will still be better, for you are as handsome of any of them, Mr. Bingley might like you the best of the party. My dear, you flatter me. I certainly have had my share of beauty, but I do not pretend to be anything extraordinary now. When a woman has 5 grown-up daughters, she ought to give over thinking of her own beauty. In such cases, a woman has not often much beauty to think of. But, my dear, you must indeed go and see Mr. Bingley when he comes into the neighborhood. It is more than I engage for, I assure you. But consider your daughters. Only think what an establishment it would be for one of them. Sir William and Lady Lucas are determined to go merely on that account, for in general you know they visit no newcomers. Indeed, you must go, for it will be impossible for us to visit him if you do not. You are over-scrupulous, surely. I dare say Mr. Bingley will be very glad to see you, and I will send a few lines by you to assure him of my hearty consent to his marrying whichever he chooses of the girls, though I must throw in a good word for my little Lizzie. I desire you will do no such thing. Lizzie is not a bit better than the others, and I'm sure she is not half so handsome as Jane, nor half so good-hearted as Lydia, and we know what happens to Lydia. But you are always given her the preference. They have none of them much to recommend them, replied he. They are all silly and ignorant like other girls, but Lizzie has something more of a quickness than her sisters. Mr. Bennet, how can you abuse your own children in such a way? You take delight in vexing me. You have no compassion on my poor nerves. You must mistake me, my dear. I have a high respect for your nerves. They are my old friends. I have heard you mention them with consideration these 20 years at least. Ah, you do not know how I suffer, she says. But I hope you will get over it and live to see many young men of 4,000 a year come into the neighborhood. But it'll be no use to us if 20 such should come, since you will not visit them. Depend upon it, my dear, that when there are 20, I will visit them all. Mr. Bennet was so out of mixture of quick parts, sarcastic humor, reserve, and caprice, that the experience of 23 years had been insufficient to make his wife understand his character. Her mind was less difficult to develop. She was a woman of mean understanding, little information, uncertain temper. When she was discontented, she fancied herself nervous. The business of her life was to get her daughters married. Its solace was visiting and news. Okay, so a quick chit-chat about what's going on here. So back in the Regency and Georgian era, women were typically relegated to marriage, taking care of the olds. Some of them could work. You could be a paid friend, or a companion. You could be a governess. You could work or be shuffled off to a relative. As we know with Jane, she never got married. And her and Cassandra, who also never got married as her fiancé died at sea, ended up hanging out with their mom and lived by the good nature of her brother. So much of what's going on with the Bennet girls is that Mr. Bennet's property is entailed. And this means that the property, estate, and money will go to the next male heir. And since there are no men or boys in the Bennet family, this is where Mr. Collins comes in, for he is a cousin of Mr. Bennet. So it is important for Mrs. Bennet to get her daughters married so that they can find comfort and be cared for in their life. There are many people in the Janite community that wouldn't mind going back to that time period. I, however, am not one of those people. I'm a great fan of technology, indoor bathrooms, showers, and Amazon. So that's it for this episode. See you next time.